Slido questions are available to be asked. Are we missing someone? Yes, we're missing Zane Silina. This is the problem of two people having the same last name. Not a problem, just an issue. I'm really, really sorry, but we have two people from Latvia, Ieva Silina, and then also Zane Silina, who is project manager at Latvian Rural Forum. Thank you, everybody. Let's welcome them by applauding. Sorry about that again. Referring back to your presentation, Mr. Žakavičius, EU structural funds, would you maybe tell us a little bit of the dynamics of that? Have they been, aren't we getting less and less of them with every financial perspective?
Well, I will say that actually it goes rather in another direction, because as a Ministry of Finance, we are always like willing to use more structural funds as well as budget for financial instruments. So what we can see clearly in agricultural sector, that sometimes there is a willingness of let's say other policymakers to use more subsidy and grant scheme, and in our opinion it's probably a better way to use financial instruments, because this is like on the market conditions can even attract more private investment to unlock more investments into the sector, and as well as it has revolving effect, so we can reuse the same money once again in order to boost let's say new technologies, new business models in agro sectoral area.
You have used the phrase good opportunities for startups and other models. I was wondering, what does that actually mean from the perspective of the ministry? Are you encouraging that in any sort of way, or is it just that we are open for opportunities and we're not really doing anything to get them?
Well, our priority is always to create, so to say, innovative financial schemes and models. So the main role is to encourage and also to attract private investors. And what do I mean by attracting private investors? I mean that. For instance, venture capital. We can share risks, we can invest together, so they have, so to say, track record, they have expertise, they know how to generate project pipelines, they know how to evaluate projects, etc. And the state can give additional money or can take a little bit, so to say, more risks in order to boost this innovative scheme. That's the one part. The second part is also that we are the Ministry of Finance at the current time undergoes the reform of consolidation of national promotional institutions. So we have planning to have this year strong development bank, and this bank should take a notable role for fostering and boosting these kind of investments in startup environment.
If you had to name the main challenge, regional development challenges from the perspective of the policy level, what is identified from the policy perspective? What challenges are crucial in the specific country of Lithuania?
Well, I think we have a similar situation as in our neighbors. We still have, let's say, investment gap to cover infrastructure, to invest more in infrastructure, because this is like a backbone for accelerating other activities and accelerating also businesses. So in my opinion, we are still lacking, or we have still a great potential to invest in infrastructure and to boost these accelerating programs also for startups and for other investments.
investment gap to cover infrastructure. I think that the preferred term here is window of opportunity rather than a gap. At least this is what comes from previous discussions. But Mr. Augustinavičius, what would you see as the main development challenges? Would you agree that infrastructure is the main issue?
Hello, everyone. Of course, the gap of investment is one of the reasons why we have such high regional differences in Lithuania. It's worth to mention that over 20 years since Lithuania joined Eurozone, European Union at first, so our GDP per capita grew very fastly. So we started with GDP per capita below 40%, and now we have 89%. So this is the fastest growth among Central and Eastern Europe countries and second best in Europe, following just Ireland. The issue is that we grew very fastly, but the growth was not very equal, and that fast growth surpassed the how to say, the regional differences. And now we have, for example, capital region, which is very well developed in compared to GDP per capita, and the rest of Lithuania, where 70% of people are living, it's quite is not having such a high economic prosperity. And now we have another opportunity in this decade. So we have a new financing period. We have recovery and resilience funding as other European countries. And of course, for the president, which came with a welfare agenda, so reduction of regional differences is very important. And this decade might be crucial if we want to reduce the regional differences. And of course, such a ways as a smart grow and green grow is very important. And this is what is included and encoded in the European funding and recovery and resilience funding. And this is a huge opportunity for regional policymakers, for municipalities to use those funding in order to make a better living environment for people, to make, as it was mentioned, better infrastructure, to make it sustainable infrastructure, green infrastructure, and to foster entrepreneurship. And of course, we have good examples in Lithuania and some municipalities who are trying to do that, other maybe still struggling, but anyway, the core policy is oriented toward that. And last year, for example, it was changed very important constitutional law, which from this year, the change enables municipalities to invest more and to better absorb, how to say, European funding, because municipalities need to add additional own resources. And we saw that in the slides before that for larger cities, it's more easier to use structural funding. For small municipalities, it's not so easy to do that. So this new constitutional law will enable all municipalities to use European funding, and that will enable to decrease those regional differences and to make a better living areas in especially rural and regional areas in Lithuania.
You say that municipalities can now absorb better funding from the EU funds. Very roughly speaking, visually on the surface, it didn't seem for many years that smaller cities in Lithuania didn't absorb the funding, because you would go to a smaller town and they would use EU funds to fix the benches, public halls, public areas, and visually it seemed that it's doing much better than big cities, but then there were no people to sit on those benches. What would your comment be? Was that a success story, or was that just on the surface?
It is worth to mention that European is also changing, and if you compare new European funding, recovery resilience funds, so 40% is dedicated towards green growth, green environment, green infrastructure, 20% is dedicated to the digitalization. So meaning that green and digital growth is very important, and it by itself it's very how to say, well-developed investment, very sophisticated investment, and it will be a different story now because European funding rules change, and European has a Green Deal, it's a new course, and this is a great opportunity for regions to make a more sustainable growth and much more profitable, how to say, investments.
Yeva, is the situation really that similar in Latvia? Just to sum up, I think we have heard that lack of infrastructure, investment gap to cover infrastructure is the main challenge in Lithuania. And also on a good side, on a positive side, municipalities can now absorb funding better, and hopefully this will reduce the gap between big cities and small cities. What is going on in Latvia?
Well, actually, Baltic states are more or less the same. So the main problems were established this morning at 9:15. So it's also economic disparity for us. It's also lack of talent pool, and of course, there's inequalities in infrastructure. I wouldn't say that the funding is the main resource of it, but of course, for example, city of Riga, which is built for 900,000 people, right now here there are 600,000 people living in there. So of course, it has to adjust in one way or another, and same is happening here. So we have to put like extra effort, extra much love into rural areas. And as I see from presentation of the ministry, I see that it's more or less putting money where the money already are. So I would be very eager to hear what the plan is for rural areas.
But let's see the rural area specifically in Latvia. You represent an organization which is a Latvian Rural Forum. That's more than 80 organizations. What tendencies do you see in the regional development process in Latvia?
I think a lot of issues already was mentioned during this day. Of course, it's like infrastructure, as we're talking here about infrastructure gap, and also workforce, like in general, because also in Latvia we have this depopulation, you know, and not only in rural areas, also in Riga, like a lot of people moving out of Riga. So and it's another.
Out of Riga to other countries?
No.
To regions?
To region. For example, Riga planning region. You know, from Riga capital, they're moving out, and also, but okay, it's a big gap. For example, in Latgal region, like 20% less people than a decade ago. You know, it's a lot, and it causes a lot of other issues. So it's like a workforce, so and then development in general in these areas, you know, housing and so on. So we can mention the same issues as in Lithuania as well in Latvia, and yeah, and Latvian Rural Forum focus on rural development from holistic way. You know, you see as a playground, I would say, yeah, from different angles. And for us, it's very important not to talk about just businesses, but also community development. And this is also base for development of all territory in general. So and about regional development, you know, and we have this network in all over Latvia. We have 34 local action groups. They're directly working with the people and communities there. So it's a powerful network. And local action groups having this leader approach. And they develop these territories, these small territories, one by one, using a bottom-up principle, you know. And this helps local people to understand that they can do a lot by themselves. And
But how are they working exactly, local action groups? What is it?
local action groups, it's NGO. And here comes together like municipality, inhabitants, organizations, business people, and looking strategically on territory to understand how to develop it, what they need, what are their needs, how they want to see their village or like rural area after 10 years, you know, and then you balance all needs. It's not only about like startups or businesses there, but it's all about all community, about each person who lives there. So, and Latin Rural Forum has a lot of instruments to support such communities. You know, we really use a possibility to have heard these people up in ministries, for example. We are every second year we're making Latin Rural Community Parliament and gathering together a lot of people. And then also people from ministries can hear what's really happens in the...
But is it really working as you're describing? For example, what we hear from communities in Lithuania sometimes is that the government or the municipalities are not talking to people enough, are not discussing important issues enough. They're taking decisions without any consultation and so on and so forth. And that's, you know, the recurrent issue. When I'm listening to you, it sounds like it's nothing like that in Latvia, but is it really the case?
You know, Latin Rural Forum is NGO. And it means that we can be a voice of people in rural areas, and we are doing it. We really like working directly with people in local rural areas and directly with ministries. We are like a communication canal, between these two, vertical.
Would you maybe name an initiative or two that was born out of this close cooperation and discussions?
Now we are talking. Our topic is short supply chains and like a food in general, strategically, and we have laboratories like workshops where we are talking with local people and we trying to understand what they need to support local producers and how municipalities could have this instrument like procurement like instrument to support local enterprises, and we are understood that we need to change the law to make it happen in a most effective way. So and now we are moving up to talk about this.
So there is advocacy being done to change the law.
We want to do it. Yes, we are coming together in all these levels.
But in general, the problems, as you say, are similar. But when we talk about Latvia and Lithuania, Riga is much bigger of a city. So proportionally, probably there's much less, rural areas in Latvia than in Lithuania, like really rural areas. What would you say are the obstacles in promoting innovation in the rural areas in Latvia?
Okay, we have one more instrument we are using. It's like smart villages. Like for 2 years, like Latvian Rural Forum, we are working with this. We are giving a sign to villages who understand that they are smart ones, and we are have now like 18 smart villages in Latvia, and it's like a base for like communities and villages to understand that they are very strong, that they have resources, and they have possibility to implement innovations. So we have, for example, social innovations, culture innovations, we have technical IT innovations in these villages. So we have already this small path towards innovations in rural areas.
Mr. Augustinavičius, we don't have anything like smart villages in Lithuania, do we?
We have. We have various examples. Of course, we are growing, but there are some examples. And for example, if you take, let's say, Tauragė district, so we have a town which is making very complex actions and roadmaps in clean mobility and clean energy, in gathering all startups communities in one place. So there are a lot of actions that, I mean, there could be examples, but maybe there is no some common strategy which taking all municipal grow in a smart way, but this grow is encoded in the EU investment fund. So meaning that those who are not yet smart will have to be smart, and they will give benefits to their local residents in that area. So this is growing in Lithuania as well.
I want to address the question to Dr. Julia Kiršienė, who represents academia, and I just want to ask you very generally, reduction of regional differences in Lithuania, because you probably may not know necessarily that much about Latvia. How successful is it? Is the government and municipalities, are they working enough to reduce the regional differences from your perspective?
Thank you for having me here. First of all, in this very well-organized event, I maybe very shortly just introduce my university and why Vytautas Magnus University is in this event and in this panel. Actually, our university is in 3 regions in Lithuania. We have our buildings not mostly in campus in Kaunas region and Kaunas city as well, and in Vilnius. And we, as university, are the main center of preparing specialists for agricultural sector. It's after merger of Vytautas Magnus University with Agricultural University in 2019. We are in Lithuania, I think, the main center for preparing qualified specialists for rural areas. And as well, we are the main center for preparing teachers, which is important for all Lithuania. And in all other science and studies directions as well, it is comprehensive university. So we discuss a lot about the issues we are discussing in this panel with academy, with ministries, with businesses. And it was already mentioned a lot of important aspects like infrastructures, like gaps between regions and cities. And it could be mentioned even more. Yeah, it's, but first of all, I would say that the center of smart villages or innovation in rural areas is intellectual potential. And intellectual potential is in people. So if we can have very good infrastructures in regions and good initiatives for investing into infrastructures, however, if we don't have intellectual potentials there, I think we have a big problem.
So you're saying that there are not enough people in the region?
It's actually, yeah, one of the problems, but I would say from other side, it's not the question in people. I would say the question is in competence, in knowledge. Are these people competent? Are these people knowledgeable? And yes, when we speak to businesses or other universities or institutes about innovation, they usually say, yes, we need money, we need funding. But it is true in a sense, but actually, I would say that we need more qualified specialists because yes, we can create good innovations here at universities, but we create them not for regions, not for Tauragė or for Pakruojis or for whatever region. We create it globally. We create it for the world. And actually they could be applied everywhere in the world, our innovations we create at universities. So, and we as Lithuania, as regions, we can import innovations. But in order to apply them, we need people that should be qualified very well.
Where do we get them? How do we ask the qualified people to go to rural areas?
I'd like to mention that actually what the COVID pandemic has taught us, there are plenty of people willing to go to rural areas. If there were possibility to work remotely, a lot of people were enjoying quietness, living with nature, with their family, like exploring this type of lifestyle instead of urban lifestyle with all the noise, all the pollution, all the stress and so on. So what we need those innovations for more of people being supported by less amount of people. Looking by demographics, by the process happening in Europe, we see that we can hope for living longer lifespans than did our grandparents, for example, and we see that growth rates are actually declining, especially right now when the births are given by ladies born in 90s. We all know what happened in 90s here in Riga and Tallinn. So the only choice is innovation. and lots of innovation is digital. And of course, we are talking about not innovation for Lithuanians or Latvians or never, for people in one city. We are talking about innovation solving problems of the world. And those can be also people living in rural areas, enjoying the lifestyle they can have in nature, and at the same time working remotely and creating those things.
But we cannot rely on, global outcries like the pandemic, that there will be a pandemic and then everybody will move to small towns and we'll have regional development, great plan of regional development. It's probably really temporary and we need broader national policies.
It's not really temporary. We can see like what the people like going out of the cities, and at least in Latvia, and I think it's a global tendencies all over the world. That's why in Latvia we have like three-part policies. One is like establishing innovation, promoting policies. We have a new law of startups. We have a new development strategy of startup ecosystem. We are promoting small, medium enterprises, and in the next 5 years we'll be putting 1.8 million in the Latvian economy for all those money, also for digitalization 800 million, also for productivity, also for energy saving, also for fighting inequity. We are doing all those things, so environment is like innovation friendly, as we need this be higher after the food chain, have more added value, so we can be all living good life, from the value added. In the same time, we need to promote rural tourism to bring some people, some money also into those places. I saw a wonderful ad here about Vilnius. I love Vilnius, and everyone in Europe knows it's one of the gems we have here. But I would like so much more to see what's in countryside, because I don't have information. Of course, everyone knows Druskininkai and so, but there lacks information of that. And those are the things we have to work on. And those people going there saying, oh, it's a wonderful place, perhaps I could work there and develop my unicorn, my new startup of innovations in there.
Julia, let me encourage to finish your idea about qualified human force lacking in general, right? How could that be solved?
I think if we really want to attract qualified peoples and people to the region, we should think about all ecosystem. And I probably would mostly elaborate on educational ecosystem, but just only one example from what's going on, let's say in Vilnius. Yeah, we now will have municipality elections, and one of main candidates to Vilnius mayors, he says, he promises to his electors that we will attract the best math teachers from all Lithuania. We will have the best skilled math school pupils here in Vilnius. What does it mean for regions? And what does it mean when we talk about educational quality in Lithuania here in Vilnius and in Lithuania scattered in all
but this is an electoral
towns.
campaign. If it was the possible mayor of Radviliškis, he would be saying the same, that he will attract all the best teachers to Radviliškis. Let's not take that seriously.
It is just an example that how important could be even general education, because problem begins there. And if we don't have, school children well educated in regions, school children from Vilnius, they will not come to our university to such programs where we prepare qualified specialists for regions. It is smart, very good programs for agricultural sector, but pupils from Vilnius, they will not come to these programs, and they will not return to regions. Actually, we should think about, pupils which are in regions, but they are not well prepared, because educational quality could be not like 20% worse there, it could be 10 times worse. than in Vilnius.
Let us ask the advisor to the president about the reduction of regional differences. Is there being done on the educational level to ensure that everyone gets the same level of education throughout the country?
Yeah, so this is one of the most important issues and stressed by the president that Lithuania has a lot of natural resources, and the only natural resource is human capital, and we must promote it as possible better. And I think it was last year it was passed new laws which provides more possibilities for equal start in education, meaning that in mentioned regional areas, so it's preschool education is very poor in terms of access to those services. And if you have not enough qualitative start, meaning it will take same results in later stage of education. So equal start was one of the most important changes recently in education system. And of course, it will take time to generate the dividends from the very beginning, the very start. So the next flow of actions, how to say it, it should be upskilling and reskilling. It's also getting more and more popular and involving more people. And in Lithuania, we have 7 free economic zones where companies can establish business in different regions. And upskilling and reskilling activities, institutions are also playing a very important role in that. So but it's not like ad hoc changes. We need to persistently promote our people, talents, and human capital.
What about the education situation in Latvia?
Education differences. I think main problem for us is that lots of regional universities are having like filials, how it's called, like smaller part of larger university based in Riga. We have like smart of it in the city. And if there are some courses, like last courses to come in Riga to get the best professors, and so what we see is that most often those people stay in Riga. Because of course, if you are studying like a great program in university, possible enterprises always hunt for you, right? There are a lot of offers. Please come to our company, work here, do this, and they tend to stay in cities. So we need something kind of to put people back in there, or either kind of people generating enough value so people in rural areas can live well enough. So actually the main course, anyways, main goal is like sufficient lifestyle, kind of living happily life, prosperous for all of the people in Baltic states.
I do remind everybody of the possibility to ask questions on Slido, or if there is a question in the audience or a critical comment or a remark, anything that you want to make, please raise your hand. There will be a microphone running. We still have roughly 15 minutes for the discussion, so do contribute and intervene if you feel the need to. Nope. Yes, thank you. I think the microphone is coming. Would you please wait for a second?
Thank you very much for all of your, this panel as well, really interesting. I wanted to hear, do you have any thoughts on kind of incentives? I mean, rather than just a great infrastructure, but maybe tax incentives or other type of maybe economical incentives that might also attract, people, but also maybe these startuppers, particularly to consider rural areas. I mean, here obviously that there are countries that are attracting, for example, people to move over with some kind of a tax reduction. Have you had any of these kind of thoughts or other type of incentives that you see that would work?
Thank you. That's a very good question. Yes, Latvia.
If I can start, I'd possibly share what's happening in Riga, not Riga, but in Latvia overall. As I mentioned, we recently signed the memorandum of understanding together with startup ecosystem development strategy for the next years, and there are some nice initiatives in there for startups. As Augustus in the keynote also said, that it has to be put also in rural areas and everywhere, and have to support them. So we have investment sessions. It's one of the initiatives. Mentor program creation for startups. New risk capital instrument development on principle of fair pari passu is the right word, but it means like in equal terms. Also, we have those sandboxes for testing areas. Well, that's the one initiative actually just in Riga at the moment. In VEF area, we have this cluster of IT technologies, and also with Riga Technical University and University of Latvia. And like bigger program, it's overall Latvia. We have this innovation development program. It's like research program, just way over in this technology readiness level. All those technologies, all those knowledge made in European projects and research projects to bring them closer to market, so we can just make like the last leap commercialization. We have also programs for that, and bring them to startups, because the startups they're of course, it's the brightest and the best way to bringing innovation all over the world, but in the same time they are not happening in blank space. The best place for startup is ecosystem. For example, if you have hospital, it's actually not a hospital. It has to be like a health city. It has to be like a place where there are patients, where there are patient NGOs, where there are researchers, where there are startups, where there are medical professionals trained in innovation who can see what's needed for the people and give idea for startups also testing at the same time, so it can fly over the world, because the people are all the same, everywhere, and the problems are the same. We just have to be more creative, and we are extremely creative countries in here. We just have to catch those and implement those and make profit on those.
Mr. Žakavičius, any tax incentives in Lithuania for startups and different types of innovations in the regions?
Well, talking about, let's say, regions, we do have some really great, let's say, investments, and well, I'm tackling to the issue infrastructure, but I think the second wave of public investments goes to renewables, yeah, and we are investing in renewables, energy sources, and generating plants, etc. And those kind of investments are in the regions. And then we unlock the potential also for the whole environment of startups to maybe realize where the business ideas are. And I think overall, Baltic region is a great testing platform to scale up new technologies, new business ideas to go global. Second thing is that we are actually really good in attracting foreign investments, and these are also related to our regions, because we have prepared various programs for attracting it, for investing in free economy zones, in let's say industry parks, etc. So we are like preparing the infrastructure for green and brown investments. Secondly, we are also very strong in, let's say, clustering and combining different kind of businesses to have a common strategy, to have a common goal, to engage all kind of stakeholders, and to boost their businesses. Also, we are actually leading in fintech and financial hub, let's say.
Does that have anything to do with rural areas?
Well, I think that, we have to see the whole picture a little bit global, and I think if we are very good at one specific area and one specific priorities, so then we have, let's say, also a leverage effect broadening to other networks and business sectors. So. I won't be so focusing on the specific region, because I think that cooperation is the key and the future of growing all regions together.
So you don't think that reduction of regional differences is crucial?
Well, it is crucial, but in every challenge or every how to say problem, there is also a challenge. I think we should more of be focused on, let's say, cooperating and finding maybe the best infrastructure in one region than to use the needs or the benefits for other regions.
I can see that there is a question in the audience before that, because you asked to mention some initiatives. sometimes the initiatives that are not necessarily related to startups come from individual municipalities. Like, for example, there is a municipality where the mayor decides to get high salaries for doctors who would decide to come to that region, then they get flats for cheaper price, and these regions then, prosper with medical equipment and with the infrastructure, as you say. But does that always have to be dependent on individual mayors? That's the question to the advisor to the president.
So I think also it is worth to mention it's not just tax incentives, but if you want to attract people to regions, so it's about their living area. And in Lithuania, we have financial support for those young families which are buying first or flat or a house for accommodation. So this is very important. This is the starting of people who are moving to regions. Afterwards, of course, we can speak about where they work and what they do, what economic activity they do. And of course, we have, as I mentioned, 7 free economic zones, and we have more favorable tax regime. So we have 7 economic zones in different regions. So business can also go to any regions and to find their location. So either it is startup or either it is industrial companies and so on.
Augustas Alešūnas has a microphone, and we're all ears.
Thank you. It's less on a question than my remark. Quick story. So I have a friend, good friend of mine. He is vice president of one of the top 5 biggest computer electronic corporations in the world. So salary is a little bit above 1.5 mil per year. And what he is doing is he is jumping in between Dubai and Singapore, because those 2 regions are competing, talking about the taxes and tax exemption. And now he is swapping them like, like the shoes, like every single 3 years, because someone is offering better conditions. And when you're getting more than a mil, it makes sense, to save 10 or 15% of that, amount of money. So more of my advice, maybe to the representative of Ministry of the Finances, is that what you are saying, and all of you are talking, it's more about, the incentives for the setting up the businesses and building the infrastructure, which is absolutely right. And I was talking during my keynote about the same. But I remember it was a great remark from the CEO of the Vikonda that he would like to see not one more unicorn in Lithuania, but like 10 happy villages with the happy people, blah, blah, blah. So I would say that maybe the government would be able to find the scheme and the model of the incentivization of the municipalities or the counties, so they would start in between them to compete about some kind of tax exemption or, additional subsidizing for the people to move to that specific region, just to try it as the pilot. Because for the businesses, it's clear. A lot of motivation is happening in the regions, but what about the people? Because Yulia was talking that the bright minds has to come to the regions. So you don't need to think only about the entrepreneurship thing, but you need to think about, mid-high level managers or scientists or whatever is needed. So that's just a few cents from my side.
Okay, tax exemption competition between regions. How does that sound, Mr. Zhakavicius? Are there any sort of discussions like that in the corridors of the finance ministry?
Well, it's actually difficult topics because on the one hand we want all have to tax incentives. On the second hand, we want to have public services, which is financed by the taxes. So I think it's very individual, and we always have to be clear with our final direction and what we want to achieve. And this is probably we have to take a whole picture, and there are always different kind of alternatives. It might be tax intensive, maybe subsidies, maybe grants, maybe in some cases financial instruments, maybe unlocking banking services, providing loans on a commercial basis or other. It depends of what we want to achieve and what kind of instruments is the most suitable for this goal. So there is no yes or no answer.
Thank you. Yeva?
I'd like to add on Latvian experience. I can totally agree to Augustus that person searches where it's more convenient for him, but to kind of see all those differences in taxes, well, it's just for extremely smart persons. So what we are doing in Latvia to kind of make it easier, we are building low rental cost buildings. Because of course, both in here and in Latvia, we had quite a bit buildings from Soviet Union, and you know how they are like, well, they are how they are, right? So they are building those new buildings, energy efficient, so the, the bills will be low for all the commodities, and also, it's very low cost for the rent. And so the person getting the same salary, especially can work remote or so, also can have this, and this also like financial gain, the same idea as you said, just got in a different way, one of the things we are doing.
Talking about that multi-story building renovation program.
No, we are also doing that as well. Of course, it's what we all are doing in the region, but we are building new buildings and energy efficient, and on the same time, so we can offer very low rent apartments for persons to live in there, because we see, how the rent prices are going up in here.
I think that's also an interesting point for discussion, because the finance ministry representative has mentioned this program as something which you prioritize. However, I understand that in general it is stuck a bit because construction companies don't really want to work on them because the prices of construction have gone up and they have to re-sign the contract and so on and so forth. But that's our national problems, which we are not going to dwell on. I want to ask you this. As far as I understand, the Baltic countries do absorb the EU funds well, right? And the commissioner in the morning talked about different policies, different measures, two policies: long-term vision for European rural areas, new European innovation agenda, then programs like Horizon Europe, European Institute of Technology, and there are many sources of funding, right? So in terms of fostering innovation in the regions, isn't the answer just more funding possibilities or making use of the existing funding possibilities to attract all of this innovation fostering in the regions? You just have to tell the innovative people about the funding possibilities louder and louder, because as far as I understand, there is a lot of them, and maybe they would go to those regions and just do their startup things there. It's just, I mean, it sounds like there are so many opportunities, but then why are we struggling so much? Let's make a final comment each, and how can initiatives like Startup Village be instrumental there?
Probably it's worth to mention that it's not just about funding. Funding it's without funding you are not able to do much. But in above the funding, there is a need cooperation between scientists and business, between public sector and private sector. Commercialization of innovation, this is the core issue. And in some areas, for example, in Lithuania, in biotechnologies, we can do a lot. The sector is booming. But we can also move to other sectors, to other green economy sectors, which could also make a boost and make a much more value-added economy in other sector, not just, for example, biotechnologies. And in this respect, so of course, municipalities has also a lot of power to incentivize and to invite various scientists and businesses and try to organize, to help them to cooperate in different areas. For example, we have town of Molėtai, which has now a new factory which will be building electronic, very well developed things. So meaning that in Lithuania we have good examples where business and scientists cooperate and work together and make large business units, large advanced factories and so on. But we need more examples, and all ingredients are needed, but we are not able to miss anything, but all should be working together and someone should consolidate them.
It's interesting that you mentioned the Molėtai factory, because I think that the reason why it is there is because the owner of the company is originally from that town, and this is how all of these things start. It all depends on individual people so many times. Your final comment, Ieva.
I'd say that innovation is not happening in blank space. So in Latvia, we have like a space cluster in Ventspils, we have IT cluster in Valmiera, we have lots of others, but it's where something is located. So you cannot just bring some person or some institute that happens that magic will grow. No, it's not like this. We have to work together and we have to develop all the Baltic states in the same time. And that's actually what this initiative is for, right? So we can work together on talent pool, attracting and educating the people we already have in here. We can work for attracting more funding to Baltic states, because let's be clear, for Americans, for example, Australians, well, we are a kid, we are just Baltic states. They cannot pinpoint each of our countries. And of course, legislation, making legislation the way the companies want to come here, wants to invest in here, want to have their factories in here. So we all live work better together. So it's common work, and that's what this initiative is great for.
Julia, is it really not just about funding?
Yeah, if it would be one word, I would say it's we should change our mindset from this centralized, hierarchical, concentrated, city-centered into more decentralized, inclusive, context inclusive, cooperative, regional. Yeah, it's the problem of mindset, and actually this centralized mindset is anti-trend in global world now, in this networking world. So we should step by step try to change it.
Mr. Zakavicius?
I would also say and totally agree that probably the cooperation and working together, growing together, this is probably the key strategy for all regions. And there was a financing issue. I think that the government has strategical goals. Therefore, we have also plenty of financial instruments, plenty of initiatives to reach these goals, these milestones, etc. So, but the key element, I think that if we have great technologies, great innovation solutions. Businesses is not just about making margins. It's way beyond that. It's making social impact. So where there is a good idea, a good innovation solution, there will be also a suitable finance for that.
Thank you. Zane?
Yeah, here I think the most important what we talk about is communication. You asked how people can know these all instruments. They need to have a communication all the time. We need to have a communication between all levels. And actually 56% of inhabitants in rural areas in Europe don't feel heard. You know, and here we can understand, yeah, communication is the case. And actually keep everything simple. Because if there are a lot of instruments, how can you choose the right one, you know? If it's not simple way, this is for this is for that. So communication, I think this is the word.
Thank you so much for your insights, for naming the problems and offering some possible solutions to them. It was very insightful and really interesting. Thank you so very much for joining.